So let's talk about why your ketogenic diet sucks. So one of the things I get from people really often is that they tell me, "Oh, I tried the ketogenic diet. It didn't work. I felt awful. Whatever." Some explanation that people always give to me on why it didn't work. They had low energy, or they had diarrhea, or some whatever the problem is. Okay, this is true. Not every diet's going to work for everybody. But one of the things I point out to people is there's a couple factors that come into play really quick. So one, a lot of people overeat protein, and of course, if you're overeating protein, this kind of throws off the whole ketosis, ketogenesis process here. Your body will perform, a process called gluconeogenesis. It can convert a certain amount of protein into glucose. That can happen. Also, if you're overeating protein, you're probably undereating the fat. So if you're undereating the fat, then of course you don't have sufficient fat in your diet to produce ketones. So there's your next problem there. Another factor in this is, of course, under eating fat. So even if you have your protein dialed in, but you're not eating enough fat, what you're going to have happen there is you're going to have low energy. And this happens most commonly in people who are doing ketogenic diets because they want to lose weight, or if they're trying to lean out or make a cut or whatever it is. If you're eating a ketogenic diet because, let's say, like you're an ultra marathon runner or something like that, and you're eating to fuel your performance, you're probably not under eating. But a lot of people are going into a caloric deficit and trying to introduce a ketogenic diet at the same time. And what happens is they overshoot their caloric deficit, so they're under eating by more than they should be, and then they're also trying to adjust to a new diet. Well, of course you're going to feel awful. I mean, under eating doesn't make you feel very good in the first place. So when you combine that with a new diet, I mean, you're just making it that much harder on yourself. Another big issue is fat sources. A lot of people will try to get their fats from things like nuts. Nuts are not a great option. I know that, you look at the macros and stuff like that on them, it's like, oh, look, almonds or whatever. But one of the things I want to point out to people is that when we actually test this stuff, you're only absorbing something like 80% of the calories from almonds. That's not a strict number because I've seen studies that waver above and below that. But the point is that the absorption is not very good, so you're not absorbing 100% of those calories. And nuts don't digest all that well. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves here. If you swallow an almond whole, it probably comes out the other end whole. So when you stop and think about that, how much of it are you really benefiting from? So that's one of the big things I point out to people is that, whenever you put a lot of nuts into your diet, it just kind of throws things off. You're better off going with things like avocados, coconut oil, butter, obviously meat. Meat's going to have a lot of fat in it. Just choosing olive oil, you know, um, walnut oil even. You can start using oils. You can use nut oils, almond oil, walnut oil, avocado oil, things like that. Those are going to be much easier for your body to assimilate than eating a cup of almonds. So those are three of the major factors that I see. Overeating protein, too big of a caloric deficit, and then of course choosing the bad options for your fat sources. I don't want to call them bad because there's certainly nothing wrong with almonds, but it's not an optimal fat source, especially if you're trying to adjust to a ketogenic diet. And then of course the last one, this is the biggest one, is that most people don't give it enough time. Anytime you make a change in your diet, it's going to take time for your body to get used to it. I don't care if it's something as simple as changing from chicken to beef. You're going to have a little bit of a lag in there. Maybe you're used to eating rice and now you decide, I'm going to stop eating rice, I'm going to put all potatoes in. Well, you probably aren't going to have a huge change, but if you're an athlete and you're training hard, you probably will notice some performance degradation, a little bit of change in maybe your energy levels, or you may retain more water, all kinds of little subtle changes that most people probably wouldn't notice. But if you're an athlete, you're a serious athlete, you will notice those little things, especially when you're really dialed in. If you know, okay, these are my lifts, I hit these same numbers every time, a little change in your diet and you could bump your numbers off. For like a person who just kind of is casual, it won't be that big of a difference. But my point being, a lot of people go on a ketogenic diet and they do it for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks and they say, oh, this is awful, it doesn't work, and they quit. And the thing is, I'll tell you straight up, you know, when I decided to do a ketogenic diet, I decided to commit to it for 6 months. And I really did not feel well, nor did I perform well, till about 6 weeks in. 6 weeks in, my performance came back to normal. I started hitting all my lifts again. You know, my snatch came back up, my clean and jerk came back up, my squat came back up, all my lifts came back up. But there was definitely a dip for a while there, and it wasn't like a huge dip. It's not like I went from like an 85 kilo snatch to be like, oh, I can't even snatch 40. It was like I went from like 85 to being inconsistent. You know, some days I hit 75, some days I'd hit 80. I don't think I broke 85 until about 6 weeks in, and all of a sudden it just was like, oh, 85, 87, 90. I just started coming right back up to previous strength levels, which is it doesn't really surprise me. You know, it's like that. There's like this lag effect where your body just has to get used to the new diet. So in any case, wow, when people tell me, you know, oh, I tried a ketogenic diet, it didn't work. Well, first thing is first, you know, did you eat too much protein and not enough fat? Did you cut too many calories? Did you choose poor sources of fat, like trying to eat all your fat from walnuts or something? And then, of course, you know, the biggest thing, did you give yourself enough time to adjust to it? So I hope that clears things up for people. I encourage people to try it. Uh, like I said, I'm not a ketogenic diet advocate. I'm not telling you, oh, everyone should be on this diet. It's the only diet that works. All diets work if you do them properly, but I would just like people to give this one a fair shot. In fact, for any diet. I did a vegan diet, and I felt like I have to give this a fair shot. I can't just, you know, oh, I did it for 2 weeks and I hated it, and then just quit. Because then you're not giving it a fair shake. You know, you're not really coming in and committing to it, following it, and giving your body time to actually adjust to it and feel what it actually feels like to be on that diet. So that's what I wanted to touch on. I hope this helps somebody. I am sure that someone will still tell me, oh, well, I did all those things and it didn't work, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Some diets just don't, they just don't work for some people. It's not because there's anything magical or evil about the diet. Just some people just don't feel good eating certain foods. You know, eating raw carrots gives me a stomach ache. I I don't tell other people you can't eat raw carrots because they give me a stomach ache. I don't know why they give me a stomach ache, but they do. So I don't eat them. So if you try a ketogenic diet and you really follow it and you're not overeating protein and you're getting good fat sources and you don't feel well, that's okay. That's okay. Just find another diet that works.